as you know, we have the wonderful Martin Probst. Martin is the founder and chief education officer at Profound Leadership. Martin is an award-winning learning professional who empowers organizations, teams, and individuals with human-centered leadership strategies so they can overcome the toughest challenges in today's busy and ever-changing environment, as well as positively transform their future. In this engaging webinar, Martin will share some simple yet profound strategies that you can implement instantly to promote more supportive and powerful thoughts to improve your well-being and mental health. So, Martin and everyone, thank you so much for joining Victory Officers. I'll hand it on over to you.
Thank you very much, Kate, and welcome everyone. And thank you very much for inviting me along to facilitate this online session on Mindset Moments, connecting with your inner CEO. And I trust that you can see my screen that I just shared before. If you can maybe just type in a quick yes in the chat box, that would be absolutely awesome. And as I said, welcome everyone. Oh, there's a lot of yeses coming through, and I can see we have quite a few participants on this call today, which is awesome. Kate, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I actually put a bit of a slide together myself, but I can't really top that. Yes, as you can see, I have been working in the area of human-centered leadership for quite a while. I've been around the block a few times and feel very privileged to share some of our strategies with you today. And yes, we've just really received another great award that we are very excited about, which is being nominated as one of the top 10 leadership companies in the Asian Pacific region. However, I'm not here to talk about myself. I'm here to spend the next hour with you so we can together share some exciting and great insights, wisdoms, and learning with each others. And let me start with a wonderful quote who rightfully, and that was, I always struggle to pronounce that name right. It was Ziad Abel-Dennour, I think it is, who said, "A negative mind will never give you a positive life." Yes, we need to understand that our mindset has an enormous effect on how resourceful we are or not. And that is why we have designed these engaging online sessions, where I will share some simple yet profound strategies, as Kate outlined before, with you that you can instantly implement in your life to hopefully improve your well-being and mental health, which is such an important topic, especially here in Victoria. Who is in Victoria? Maybe just use your chat function. How many people from Victoria? Is anyone outside of Victoria? I'm just wondering because Victoria is still in lockdown, as you or most of you know. So it is really important to address the mental health of things. Yeah. Oh, there's a few emojis coming through, Annie. Thank you very much. I love that. Yes, Victoria, that is fantastic. Awesome. So here are the topics for today. We will focus on the power of thoughts. That's where we start off. Then we go into how to master our minds or your minds. And last but not least, I want to have a bit of a look at creating certainty in times of uncertainty. And this is where everything comes together, where we summarize the first two topics. How does that sound? Is that a good idea? Just give me another yes quickly in the chat box if you like those topics. Yes, please. Yes, fantastic. It's a bit of a silly question because I don't really have a backup plan. So thank you very much for your support. Okay, let's go into the first topic. Let's kick off with the power of thoughts. And I want to share with you a communication model which explains our communication flow with self and other people, in fact, and will allow us to stay in control of our own thoughts, emotions, as well as our behaviors to achieve a better outcome with much more ease. And this is how it works. The process begins with an external environment. External things that we experience with our five senses. In other words, we're talking, of course, we're talking about our visual, what we see, with our auditory, what we hear. There's also the kinesthetics, so the feelings, the touch, and the emotions. And of course, we also have gustatory and olfactory, which is our taste and smell. And our sensory input channels, in other words, our five senses, they are actually exposed to 2 million bits of information each and every second. And to make sense of the world, our brain actually deletes, it stores, and it generalizes information. In fact, and there's some research done on it, don't ask me how they've done it, but they're talking about we delete, distort, and generalize information from 2 million bits of information down to only about 134 bits, which are then chunked into about 7 plus minus 2 chunks of information per second. So what we filter in to compare to what is outside external of us is actually quite small amounts. And I give you an example how quickly we can delete, distort, and generalize information. You can see there are two orange lines. They look very different in length. So you probably think the line on the right is definitely longer. Am I right? So the one at the back end there, the right one is longer. But if we actually draw two horizontal parallel lines, we notice to our surprise that they're actually both the same length. And even though now that you know, you probably or you fast thinking can't stop seeing the illusion because it is happening very quickly as we just discussed. And the suggestion is actually there, or the perspective in depth causes your fast thinking to interpret the picture as 3D. So the brain quickly turns, oh, this is 3D. So the line on the right must be faster. But what we delete and distort is the fact that the drawing is done on a two-dimensional surface. So our fast thinking deletes and distorts a lot of facts and comes to very quick conclusion, which is then the generalization part. In our case, that the right orange line is definitely longer, which is of course not the case as we know. And I quite often say, we know so much that isn't so. I just think, how often do we judge ourselves very harshly with our fast thinking, where we create perhaps even limiting beliefs that are holding us back rather than nurturing and supporting us to achieve the outcome that we are looking for? Let's do another quick exercise to provide you with more insights into the power of thoughts. And what I'm going to do is in a second, I will show you a photo collage and I will give you 10 seconds to memorize as many pictures as possible with a particular color that I will reveal in a second. And I'm just checking in with you. Is everybody clear on that task? So just use the chat box again, a quick, simple yes, or even a why I get there from Randall. That's absolutely awesome. Fantastic. So here we come. Let's be very clear. And the pictures that I want you to memorize are the ones that are yellow. And here comes the picture. 10 seconds to memorize as many pictures as possible that are yellow. That leaves us with about 4, 3, 2, 1, and there goes the picture. Now, just clear your head for a second, and here comes my question, of course. Please tell me all the pictures that were blue. How many pictures can you remember that were blue? And I know that's a bit cheeky, but what are we learning about this exercise? Just share your thoughts quickly. Why do you think we've done that 10-second exercise? What are we taking away from the exercise? I'm glad some having a bit of a laugh. That's cheeky. Yes. Aaron says focus. Yes, I love that. It's about that you're focusing on. Yes, overlooking the blue. Monica, yes, interesting enough. That's exactly what it is. You guys are absolutely awesome. In fact, one of the big learnings from this exercise, and there's so much more good stuff coming through. No idea how many were blue. Yes, because Jean, we didn't, and great to see you on this call. We didn't actually focus on blue. So one of the big learnings from this exercise really is what we focus on is what we get, to the exclusion of everything else. This filtering process is in our thoughts, is the reason why every single human being experiences any given situation differently, which makes us actually, in fact, all very unique. I think it was Dr. Milton Erickson who said it in a beautiful quote. He said, every model of the world is, or everyone's model of the world is as unique as their thumbprint. So if we concentrate on our limitations and problems long enough, they will become our reality. However, if we shift our focus and spend more time on the positives and on solutions, then we will experience an abundance of success in business and life itself. Because success comes down to actually three things, and you maybe want to write that down. I think they are very important three parts. To me, success comes down to what we focus on, what we decide to do, and what we do consistently. Just going back to our exercise, I'm just curious, what if the yellow images symbolizing the problems around us and all the blue images, all the solutions that we also have around us? What if we focus so much on the problems, so the yellow images, as we've done in our exercise, that they become our reality? Then yes, everything else fades away in darkness, just as you can see on the screen. And I just utilize this in a symbol here. So only what we focus on is what creates our reality. In that case, the yellow pictures. But there is, of course, also a potential reality, which includes all the solutions. In other words, the blue pictures that we didn't see because the focus was on the problem. What if we create a more independent rather than a dependent thinking or mindset, where we empower ourselves by adopting new vocabularies through our mindset shift? From where we think from victim to warrior, where we switch from sometimes using excuses to results. To me, that was a big wake up call, and it was actually a life changer, because I had quite a few excuses in my life. And the moment I realized that I have to make a conscious decision, that I can have either excuses or results, but I can't have both, I started to focus much more on results rather than excuses. And as I said, that was actually quite a life changer for me. And I just think, what if we move away from maybe judging to more acceptance in life, from blame to taking a bit more responsibility, from fear and doubts that probably is within all of us to some extent, to focus more on the courage and actually start to trusting ourselves a bit more. And of course, as we used in our example, from problems to solutions. I'm sure we would experience better mental health and well-being, wouldn't we? What do you think? Maybe just share your thoughts with the group again within the chat box. What are you taking away from this model? Let's see what's coming through. And I just have a sip of tea, and I hope you have some drinks as well. And he says, I'm loving this. Thank you very much. Take responsibility. Yes, primary. Yep, absolutely. Randall, thank you. And I actually love it as well because it's such a simple strategy that we can implement right away. It's not sophisticated and complex and so on. It is straight to the point, very easy to understand. And yes, Andrew, widen our focus. Absolutely, we have this flashlight. What if we start to be curious and use these flashlights to see what else exists in our life that creates options and possibilities? So I think we need to have to acknowledge that we delete all the time what we unconsciously decide is not relevant. We actually distort what we experience so it fits in with what is familiar with us or to us. And we also generalize and draw conclusion based on a few experiences. Therefore, I just challenge you here a bit, but therefore, can we agree that perception equals reality and reality equals perception? I think it's the same thing. And literally, I think we've just experienced that with our activity. Otherwise, I'm just wondering, how can we have a grand final? And yes, I know, unfortunately, this year it's not in Victoria, where we have 100,000 people at the MCG. But interesting enough, wherever the grand final is, however many people we have in there, fact is that every person goes home with a different experience and commentary. Did they not all watch the same game? Yes, they actually did, but their focus and their interpretation of the game was actually done in their own unique way. And coming back to this overview of the model now, this ongoing process actually on how we filter information and is guiding us through the thought process. In other words, the thinking, which of course includes the deletion, distortion, and generalization. And that creates our internal representation. Internal representation of what externally experience inside of our heads. So I think this message is really important for this webinar. I would say that the reality that we experience is largely determined by what we do inside of our heads, how we think and how we communicate with ourselves. So therefore, it is not necessarily the reality, so the external event that shapes us, but the lens through which our brain views the world that shapes our reality. And I think that's a very important distinction that we need to understand. And this becomes a crucial part in adopting a positive mindset of excellence that will a much more or in a much improved mental being or well-being. And I'm sure that is quite interesting. So let's have a bit of a look or explore how we communicate with ourselves. And my question is to you, how many thoughts do we actually have? What do you think? How many thoughts do we have per day? Do you think we have not enough thoughts? That's our first option. Do you think we have about 600 thoughts per day? Do you think we have about 6,000 thoughts a day, 60,000? Or do you think we have way too many thoughts? They never stop. And I see Kate is very switched on here. She already brought up the poll, the official one. So please actually use that poll. Click on the option that you think. What do you think is the right answer? I'll just give you a second so you can look at it and click on what you think is the right answer. And hopefully we're going to have that quote available within a few seconds. Let's see what people think about how many thoughts we have per day. Let's see, Kate, there's people still voting. Do we have a result on that?
So can you see the result, Martin? We had a
I can't.
okay.
What?
We had about 61% voted too many, they never stop.
Interesting. I've done a similar exercise recently. We had very, very similar results. And it is interesting. I think it shows to us that sometimes we feel a bit that we are not really in control of our thoughts. But having said that, if we are not in control of our thoughts, then who is? And that question, I believe, is very important. And thanks for sharing, Kate. I think it's really important. Now I can see it suddenly pops up here. So 60% too many, 20% said 60,000, 20 said 6,000. In fact, let me give you the right answer on that. We actually have 60,000 thoughts per day, which we can turn off unless we are asleep. And yes, I understand coming back to too many, they never stop. Sometimes it feels we can't even turn them off while we go to bed. So these are many conversations we have each day with ourselves. That is a lot of thoughts. And sometimes, or I think we quite often pay very little attention to it. So let's get rid of that poll here. And I think it gives us a great starting point to have a bit of a further conversation. And I think everything starts with a humble thought. And our thoughts are our constant companion, as we say it with 60,000 times a day. The more intense that's actually a more intense relationship than we probably have with our life partner or with our best friends. So we better make sure that those thoughts are very positive and nurturing, which is of course very important when it comes to our mental health. Awesome. Now let's look at a few simple yet profound strategies, as we said, on how we can master our mind and create a mindset of excellence um, to look after our mental well-being. And thoughts are made up of words and have an incredible impact and an immense power. They have the power to crush us, to make us feel excited, or to encourage us. They can actually also provoke wars. They are a source of controversy. They create diplomacy, foster love, hate, confusion, and possibility, and so much more. Therefore, let's make sure we ask powerful solution-based question. And let me explain a bit what I mean by that strategy. Our brain works like a Google search engine. It is actually nothing else. Any questions you ask yourself in your thoughts have to be answered consciously or unconsciously. Therefore, make sure from today onwards, you build conscious awareness on what questions you actually ask yourself all day long. And then he said, wow, that's about 42 per minute. Yes, that's amazing how many thought processes are going on in our heads. Because some of them can be very limiting and holding us back, where others can be actually very empowering and supportive to achieve our goal. So with that Google search engine, let's just have a look. What questions do we sometimes put in our thoughts? And let me help, let you help me to determine if the question that you're going to see on the screen are limiting or empowering. And let's see what the human Google brings up here. Why am I always missing out? Do you think that is a limiting or an empowering question? Just use your chat box again. And yes, we agree on that. They are actually, this is a very limiting question. The another one is, why does everyone always picks on me? And I can see limiting. Rendell says even victimizing. Yes, absolutely. They are. You're spot on. And I'll just give you the next one. You already get the drift here. Why can I ever get something right? Yes, they are why me questions. I call them why me. Yes, they are victimizing. Absolutely. They are all very limiting because they focus, coming back to our previous exercise, they're focusing on the problem. They are victimizing because they actually delete all the solutions that we possibly have, and the problem seems to appear to become bigger and bigger and bigger. So you may wonder, what are empowering questions then? So let's look at this as well. Empowering questions to me would be, for example, what is good about this situation? Or what do I need to learn about myself in this situation? I think this is one of the most powerful questions that we can ask ourselves. And I probably do that with conscious awareness every single day. What do I need to learn about myself in this particular situation is very empowering, as well as how can I change this situation if I don't like something. And yes, they are empowering because they're subtly focusing on solutions. And also, most importantly, they are focusing on what is in our control. How often do we focusing on things that are outside of our control? What's happening in the world and what Donald Trump does and whatever things happening where we lose so much energy, where we buy into things that are bringing us down, that affecting our mental health. And we're going to talk about it a bit further. But important for now is we need to have empowering questions. Let's focus on what's in our control and what is solution or provides us with solution. So let's just do that from today. Another empowering thing that we can do is, again, very simple but very powerful, is actually to state things as you want it, not as you don't want it. And that's also such an important part. What really amazes me is actually how often people know exactly what they don't want. And I start to realize that, with all respect, I started to realize that very quickly when I arrived here in Australia, and I had a bit of a small talk with people, and I said, "Oh, how's it going?" And they said, "Oh, not bad." Or they would say, "What are you up to?" "Ah, not much." Or they would say, "Where are you going?" "Ah, not far." So I started to realize, I thought, why do people always tell me the things that they are not instead of what they actually are? By saying, "How are you?" and we're saying not bad, it doesn't really give me any insights of how you really feel. So, from an emotional intelligence perspective, and why do we choose sometimes to exactly choose the things that we don't want rather than the things we do want? And in fact, really interesting to understand is that our unconscious mind cannot process negatives. So, it doesn't really matter if we say spill the milk or don't spill the milk to kids. It is the same thing, because quite often that's what people or kids do. If we tell them don't spill the milk, they actually do spill the milk. And you might say, "Hang on, Martin, now you're going really a bit weird on me here. I specifically said do not spill the milk." The focus is still on spill the milk. Just to bring that home, maybe let's do another quick exercise. I think it's quite interesting. And I do understand, and I have a bit of a slight accent. Who realized that? Slight accent there, but I hope you do understand when I say, please do not, under no circumstances, whatever you do, please do not think of a clear blue sky, palm trees, and a pink elephant enjoying itself on the beach. And what just happened? You probably saw something like this. Oh, hang on. Where's the pink elephant? Ah, there it is. So probably, although I said do not, under no circumstances, do not think of a clear blue sky with palm trees and a pink elephant, your brain had to process the information to actually say, oh, you shouldn't do that, but it was too late. And every time when we say, I don't want something, I don't want to be angry anymore, I don't want to be frustrated anymore, what we focus on is anger and frustration, and it gives us or impacts our mental health. So please, from now on, do focus on the things that you want. Please do language the things the way you want it, not the way you don't want it. because it is really important to understand words are a self-fulfilling prophecy, and where your words lead, your mind and your body will follow. Really important to understand. So let's go a bit further here. We talked about the thoughts, and of course, the way we think will create our emotional states. In other words, our physiology and psychology of what we externally experience takes a form on a sensory perception. In other words, a picture with sound, emotions, feelings, and smell and taste inside of our heads. So we need to understand that our thoughts and emotional state is very mutually connected, because our physiology creates our psychology, and our psychology also creates our physiology. Let me just share a part of my life when I worked on a cruise ship. I've actually worked on cruise ships for many years. It was a beautiful time of my life. And I was always amazed, particularly when I started my first cruise ship experience in Monaco. I think that was in about 94. It shows my age. I shouldn't have shared that with you, but actually, it just demonstrates, yes, cruise ships. They have passengers on there. They have this absolutely great and amazing service and experience. And I was really intrigued, and I really raised the question in my mind of who is actually running that ship. And I'm going to hand that question over to you again. What do you think on a cruise ship? Who is actually running the ship? Let's see what we got to get here. Just use your chat box again, perhaps. The captain, the guests. Oh, Wendy, Ruby Princess, yes. In that case, nobody, and maybe we can go back to this one. The captain, staff, engine room. So we have a bit of a divided view on this. The fuel, absolutely. Passengers, Anisha says everyone. Great to see you, or not yet, but it's good to have you on the call. Really an interesting question. I actually came to the conclusion that yes, the captain is running the ship in some sense. I came to the conclusion that the captain is the brain of the ship, and the crew also running the ship is the heart of the ship. And out of my experience, I've learned that the better the captain and the crew connect and communicate with each other, the better the creation and experience was for the passenger. On the other hand, I've also seen firsthand that when connection and communication go down, so does creation. And that's a really important part. And if that happens when the captain thinks he doesn't have to communicate with the crew, if he thinks he's the only one in charge, ultimately we probably realize that we will have mutiny on that cruise ship. And let me please elaborate a bit more on that captain and the crew relationship, because I think this is really important. As we said, the captain is like the brain of the ship. I refer this for ourselves as a human being, using this as a metaphor. The captain is our brain of the ship, as I said, our mental health, our conscious mind, our IQ, in other words. The cognitive aspects of the brain functionality and mental health, the flexibility to solve problems using critical, independent, and positive thinking. In other words, how we articulate things in our lives with our self-talk, in other words, and of course, with other people through our verbal communication. And the crew, on the other hand, the crew is what I call the heart of the ship, our emotional fitness and well being, our unconscious, our emotional intelligence. And the things that are all happening without the captain actually realizing. I'm just thinking about the laundry, the galley, the cooking, the maintenance of the boat, the engine room, the stewardesses that are making the rooms, the people who painting the cruise ship, so on and so on, to provide a wonderful experience to all the passengers. And this is the ability to recognize, express, and control our moods, feelings, and emotions adequately. In other words, how we articulate things to self and others. So I'm just curious to hear, which one do you think is more important? Is it the captain or the crew, the brain on the heart, the unconscious or the conscious? What do you think is more important? Let's just use the chat box again. Sean says both. Anisha says both. Obviously, both. I'm glad this is obvious. Absolutely. So, you certainly all got the message very loud and clear. Yes, they are absolutely both are mutually important, because to get the best possible performance and outcome while maintaining great mental health, I would also say mental and emotional well being, they need to be congruent, which means they need to connect, they need to work together and have great communication. Because if the optimism of my heart says yes, but the pessimism of my brain says no, or vice versa, then what's happening to us? Well, we get mixed results, because we get mixed messages, which leads to confusion, frustration, and other negative self talk, and brings us back to square one, and will certainly affect our mental health. So, what I'm saying to this slide is congruency is absolutely key. And the title of the workshop today or session is Connecting to Your Inner CEO. To me, meaning connecting to your inner CEO is conscious awareness around your unconscious by tapping into your emotions and recognizing why they are there, to ensure they both work hand in hand and positively and resourcefully work together. This will create our most congruent, authentic self that allows us to live in harmony and create mental and emotional well being. As I think it was Carl Jung who said in his quote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it faith. And that's not what we're looking for. We're looking more for a dependent or an independent, I should say, mindset where we live our life on our own terms. Then communication flow has a role on effects, of course, because how we feel and how we think will regulate the decisions we make and ultimately determines how we respond back to our external environments with our actions and behaviors. Now, last but not least, our behaviors and action creates our results. And this is the complete overview of how we communicate with self and others around us. Which brings us to our last topic already, and it's amazing how time flies, which is creating certainty in times of uncertainty. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this workshop, this is almost a bit of a summary, and we need to look a bit closer into what is in our control and what's not. What do you think is in our control? Maybe again, just type away from the communication model overview that we've just went through. What is it that we have 100% control over in life? What do you think? That's quite an ambiguous question, and I'm wondering what's coming up. Our thoughts, our reaction, our actions, our thoughts. That almost sounds like a song there. How we respond. You guys are absolutely amazing. Love it. There's so much great stuff coming through here. The last of the human freedoms. Yes, how we react. Absolutely. Yes, I do completely agree with your answers. I believe the thing that we have 100% control over is the certainty within ourselves. In fact, that's the only thing that we really have 100% control over. And just to elaborate on your comments, which are spot on, this actually is divided in two things. The first one is the way we interpret things in life. We just learned this today. Nothing has meaning except the meaning we give by how we interpret the things that we experience externally of us inside of our brain, which is the first part, and therefore how we respond back with our actions and behaviors. It is as simple as that. You have 100% control and certainty over yourself. And this where it becomes really interesting, because there is a correlation between our internal and external world. So our state of mind, our mindset, including our confidence and self-esteem, and what's happening outside of us. Fact is, and this is really crucial, the more certainty, confidence, and control a person has within themselves, the less certainty or control they need in the world they live in, because they know they have the confidence and tool to deal with whatever comes their way. So this is really important, and I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you for being here and for investing into yourself and your most valuable real estate that I believe, which is the one we have between our ears. Because confidence comes from competence. And investing into your personal and professional development builds on certainty within, and therefore will greatly improve our mental well-being and assist us to successfully deal or be successful in today's very busy and ever changing environment. Now, how we respond will influence the people around us, which is so important, and I think quite often underestimated. In other words, the environment you live in, which we call the circle of influence. So, what we say, how we interpret things, and therefore respond with our behaviors and action has a tremendous impact on our environment, of course, but that's where our control stops, on that line of the blue circle, because what's happening outside of the circle of influence, guess what? This is where I call where the ego land starts, where the fear-driven ego kicks in, that wants to be right, look good, get even, or win even better. And it's very fear driven, where we have absolutely no control. This is where we sometimes try to change people. No, we can influence people, but we cannot change, because it's their responsibility how they interpret our actions in their own terms. And that's called the free will, which is a good thing. So the ego land is where we have no control. And I quite often say that is the ultimate illusion of control and can affect our mental health in a very negative way. So please, by the way, this is also where the burnout lives, where the stress and anxiety lives. Please do let go of the things that is not in your control, and let's start to take responsibility and action on the actual things that are in our control. So really important, let's scale from the inside out. I think that's a beautiful explanation here, because nothing, as I said, nothing has meaning in life except the meaning we give. In other words, from a mindset moment and a mindset perspective, very important to understand. Every time you think the problem is out there, you empower actually what's out there to control you. And if that thing, the problem really is outside of you, the last thing we want to do is actually give that problem the control. Would be much better to actually control or stay within control, the certainty within ourselves, so we can deal with the outside challenges. In other words, your mindset need to shift from what's out there has to change first, to what changes can I make in order to change what's out there. And I believe this is true empowerment. And I've just picked that up the other day. I think that implements very clearly how much certainty is within that person. Very excited, certainly very happy with his mindset and the achievement he has. and certainly a very independent mindset. So let's not wait until the world around us is changing. Let's create the change that we wish to see in the world, and let's move forward with it. So what I've done is actually have a bit of a whiteboard here. Kate, if you can help me out a bit with that activity, that would be great, just to finalize today's session. What are we taking away? If you can just use your chat box, and Kate, if you maybe can just copy and paste some of the comments onto the whiteboard, that would be absolutely beautiful, because action is very important, and sometimes we're doing those webinars and professional developments, walking away without implementing anything. My question, of course, today is, what is your commitment to implement, no matter how small or big that implementation is? Plus, please do commit to something, and please share it with the group in the chat box. Aaron says positive thoughts. That's all.
Martin, I am so sorry. I actually can't put it on the whiteboard because it's not a possibility in the webinar.
Oh, that's okay. We just go through the chat box then. That's absolutely fine. And we get so much good stuff. Choose positive language, Wendy. Love it. Change my thoughts from what I can do to what I can't do to what I can do. Love it. So a lot of how and what questions rather than why me questions. Positive language again, I think that is such an important part, and multiplying that by a few thousand times a day, that will have a tremendous impact on everyone. Yes, Jean, I think that's such an important thing. I think that's a huge learning, even myself, guilty as charged sometimes. Sometimes I get caught up in the things that I can't control, and I get caught up in emotions and negative mental state, which what I see in the news. Do I have the control and the power to dictate what it's on the news? No, I don't, but I have the power to switch on or switch off the news. That is my power, and that is decision making. And sometimes we have to know when we have enough information and when we need to protect ourselves from negative news to really go into a positive state. Look at solutions, not problems. Love it. Another one, look at solutions. Focus on what's important. I love it. Don't get caught up in the things that don't really matter. What do I need to learn about myself, Kate? Awesome. Fantastic. There's so much great things coming through. And just to finish off, please remember, when connection and communication go up, so does creation. And the more we learn about ourselves, the more we understand who we are, the more we become the master of our own faith and the captain of our soul. So yes, the greatest strength comes from within. So please start to live your life by design and not by default. I trust that your journey to self-discovery and great mental health starts today, or at least continues here. This is a path worth pursuing, because you are worth it, you are lovable, and yes, you are enough. And I just want to give you also the opportunity, before we finish off, to ask any related question or more feedbacks that you may have. I want to make sure that session is complete, that you have all the answers you're looking for to improve your mental health. So again, if you want to use your chat box or your Q&A part, Kate, when you can regulate that, that is absolutely amazing. We still have a few minutes to really answer any questions
We
that you
do.
have.
Yes, and if you would also like to raise your hand, I can bring you on and you can ask your question to Martin in person as well.
Even better, I would love to talk to somebody rather than just to the screen.
But that was such an incredible session, Martin. Thank you so much. Um, I'm just having a look, and he says, "Thank you, Martin, for this amazing webinar. It was so mind-opening and empowering, and it should be a compulsory class in schools." I agree, absolutely.
I wish we would teach that in school already before we even go into the workforce. That would be amazing. So big
Definitely.
catalyst for it, and thanks for that comment.
And Anisha has asked, would you have any tips to help us identify negative thoughts in their tracks? It's not always easy to be so self aware.
I love that question. Thank you very much, Anisha. And yes, it's not always easy because we are sometimes very emotionally attached to ourselves, which makes things very subjective rather than objective. A very good strategy, again, very simple but profound strategy, is actually to distance yourself in your mind's eye. In other words, seeing the challenge that you may face from a distance, the bird's eye view. I quite often refer to as well, let's go to the movie. We haven't been there for a while, but where you actually look at your situation from a distance on the big screen, where you are one of the main actors, because that helps us to remove those emotions and see things very clear, where you become your best coach, because nobody can give you better advice than yourself based on your own values and beliefs and experiences. And this is what we call a disassociation. What I would also say, Anisha, is this is where the emotional intelligence lives. Tapping into that articulation, tapping into the emotion is giving you very quickly the idea if your questions are high quality or low quality. Negative emotions clearly indicate negative thoughts are within your minds. Positive emotions clearly indicate you're on the right track with the questions you ask yourself. I hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, please, everyone, include your questions. And while you do, Martin, can you just let us know where we can find you?
Yes, absolutely. There we
Perfect.
are. The LinkedIn, do I have the LinkedIn? Let me see. I can see there's quite a few people putting LinkedIn in. Yes. And I've just put that through. Would love to connect with you. And of
Excellent.
course, if you have any further questions, please do connect on LinkedIn. Just send me a message. I'm sure to reply to you. I'm here to support you with anything I can. Absolutely.
And everyone who's included their LinkedIn, that will be in the follow up email or those LinkedIn links, so you guys can connect after today. And I'll also include all of Martin's, his website and all of those relevant links there. All right, guys. Well, if there's not any other questions, I'd just like to say a massive thank you for all being here today, and for being so active in the chat box. It's really great to see when everyone's engaged. And Martin, thank you so much for such an incredible session. As always, you were wonderful, and we really, really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. And as you said, Kate, thank you very much, everyone, for coming on, for saying yes to yourself, for investing in your personal and professional development. We just see to see the beauty and the awesome with each and everyone. And I quite often say, please be yourself, because everybody else is already taken.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you all online again soon.
Thank you, everyone. Take
Thank you.
care.